Hey guys, Nicole here with Obscure Reptiles and Caging, and today we're going to show you how to check the genders of baby ball pythons. So let's get started. Alright guys, so I'm going to start off with showing you guys how to check the genders of baby ball pythons, and I'll show you one or two adults once I have a helper here at some point in another video, because normally I like to have somebody hold the bigger snakes because there are two main ways to check the genders of ball pythons. Alright, so this is what you need when you check the gender of a larger ball python. So these are what are called gender probes. So they kind of look like something from the dentist, but they have a little ball on the end so as not to poke through the snake and harm the snake. What I do not like about these probes is you can get them in quite a few different sizes. This is just a 6 multi-pack. Normally, honestly, they're in size order. Normally for really big snakes I only ever use these two because mine are all ball pythons. I do not like these ones because that's dang near a needle. With just a very small ball at the end, and I do not want to hurt my baby ball pythons, which is something that can happen, and I refuse to do something that could harm them when there are easier ways. Personally, there are a little bit messier ways normally, but what happens is you have some of this gel, you put it on the end of the stick, and you will stick it in through their vent. So they have their tail, they've got the vent, and then they've got the rest of the body. You actually stick it up towards the tail, but you have to be incredibly gentle. And if you're doing it to a snake who's really firmly squeezing, flexing their muscles, you can't just push through that. You can really harm that animal. I do not enjoy using these. I prefer popping method. But when it comes to bigger snakes, because their body's more developed, their insides are a bit stronger, I will do it. For example, something that's 2, 3, 4 years old, I will use one of these two probes. But I've never used these smaller ones, and this large one I've never needed. I don't have a species that is that big, but that's the probing method. There's tons of videos on it and stuff. I'm going to show you guys how to pop. Personally, I think that that's the safest method, especially with babies. What I, again, personally like to do is as soon as a baby hatches, that's when they are pretty much the softest, the squishiest, and I can very gently pop them. I'll show you how to do that on some babies that just hatched a few days ago. But when it comes to, again, probing, you'd never want to do it on a just born new baby. You'd want to wait until they've had some few meals, stuff like that. Personally, again, by then they tend to be pretty feisty. I'm trying not to get bit while I'm trying to check their gender, so I like to do it fresh out of the egg, give them a nice little pop, and then when I actually separate them by gender in their cages, that way I know exactly what's the male, what's the female. But if I ever get an animal in from somebody, I will check the genders with one of these. If, again, they're, I'll say minimum a year old, but I like to wait until they're even bigger just to make sure we're on the safe side. So this one's not going to like me here in a minute. This is from our spider cinnamon calico, possibly Enchi, to our blackhead mahogany cinnamon, possible Enchi. One of the parents turned out to be Enchi, we just don't know who. But we ended up with this super cinny plus some other genes, and he's really not going to like me in a second, but he is, I believe, the only male from that clutch, so he got the short straw. So we're going to do this a little bit easier. So I like to try to hold them in one hand, and let me just take a pause and say that if you are not 100% confident that you're going to do this right without hurting the animal, do not do it. If you're ever here and you want me to show you and I've got newborn babies, I will. And again, to do this, maybe go to one of your other breeder friends, have them teach you in person, but you can really hurt this animal. They're very, very small, especially as babies. You could break their tail if you are way too rough. You can push out their insides. You could really, really damage this baby. I'm very gentle. I've been doing it for 12, 14 years. Please, please, please only do this if you're 100% confident you know what you're doing, or you're with somebody who's actually teaching you hands-on. That's why I haven't done this video yet, but people keep asking me. So I'm going to show you, but only do this if you are confident, because you can really, really damage this baby. even if they're older, you can really damage them if you're too rough. Just wanted to throw that out there. Alright, so now that we have the disclaimer out of the way, you're only going to hold, this is the body side. This is the body side right here. And this is the tail side. So the body side just holds it, and then this other side pushes and spin, like rotates a little bit. So as you can see, those two things that pop out, those are his hemipenes. So that is a little boy. I have a terrible, terrible angle, so I really can't see how well you guys could see that. But I don't want to keep messing with them, and I don't have any other boys, so let me grab a girl. So this is one of the sisters. This is a blackhead. I think cinnamon calico. I don't know. We're working on figuring out the genetics because of the extra Enchi really threw me off. And the amazing pairing was already 101 out of 128 odds. So we're going to do a whole updated video. I could definitely see blackhead in this little one. But we're going to do the same thing as before. I like to put the body side in my left hand. Those are just their little spurs. They all have those. Hopefully you guys will be able to see. That's not their hemipenes. They both have those spurs. They're on the outside of their body. Those tiny, tiny little spurs, little points right there. That does not tell you the gender. They all have that. But again, left hand, go from the tail, and then just this finger pushes and rolls. And nothing is coming out. You can actually see that tiny little white nub maybe, possibly. You can see a tiny, tiny, tiny little mark. So when it's a female, you'll see a tiny, tiny little nub come out. That's where a hemipene would be if it was a male. And the males, they're normally very dark red, and there's two, but sometimes you can only push out one hemipene at a time. But that's how you could tell the difference between a male and a female ball python when it's a baby. I'm not going to actually do it, but when it comes to the probes, you would simply, again, not recommend, I don't recommend for this young of a baby, this small, but if I was to put the probe in, I would go, it would go up, I would go in, and it would go up this way. If it's a female, I believe it's 7 to 10 scales. It's very, very hard to see, but babies have super, super tiny scales on their tail. What you would do is, you would, on one side or the other, you'd push the probe in, wherever it is, however deep, you'd put your finger there, pull it out, and then put it like this, and count how many scales. But I also don't like this method, because if it's female who's really, really tightly squeezing, and you can't really get it in there comfortably, you can, one, misgender the snake, and two, if you push too hard, you could really, really damage that snake. But personally, I think popping them is so easy, and I don't get adults in ever, really, if any. So I think it's super easy. I have heard of one person who popped them and damaged a baby as soon as it hatched, so he doesn't do that anymore till they're older. But I'm guessing it was just a little bit too hard of a pop, especially after doing this for so many years. I'm sure it's easy to just push. But with my little hands, I really have never had any sort of an issue with any of that type of stuff. But again, the gender organs for probing, you go up the tail. Don't shove a probe into the body. It would go up the tail. But I hope that helped you guys. Super, super cute snakes. Again, I'm going to do an update video on the whole clutch between this female, that male, and the other females that were in there. We did not expect there to be Enchi in them, but turns out at least one of the parents have Enchi. But that's it for this video. Make sure you guys are super, super safe when doing this. We don't want to hurt any animals. So I've been really nervous to make this video. But if you guys have any questions, put them in the comments below. If you guys are local, you want me to actually show you this, and I have babies available at the time, I have no problem, especially if you're buying an animal from me. I'll normally let whoever's coming come right down into the reptile room. You could see everything, see the adults, see the babies, see the Ackies, everything. And I can show you how to check the baby you're getting, or any that I have, totally fine. But that's it for this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe. We do at least one, sometimes two videos every single week. So I'll see you guys in the next video.